Hey, good morning guys. Welcome to another Mitsubishi Montero channel video. I haven't uploaded a video in a while, so I figured it's time we do it. And this video is gonna be video number 100 in my channel. So I wanted to do something special for you guys. First of all, few things we're gonna do on the Montero. There's nothing wrong with the Montero. We're just gonna do like a little lesson type of thing. And I know that there's a lot of new guys in the group, in the Facebook group, and you know, some of these guys, they're very inexperienced, and I can tell that they want to learn and they're eager for knowledge. So I am about to treat you guys with a great video where you're gonna learn a few things about your Montero. And I'm gonna introduce you to this multimeter. This is an entry-level, very inexpensive multimeter, but I think if you're new to the Montero, or if you're want to start learning how to diagnose and stuff like that, your vehicle, then I think this meter is a great place to start. The reason why I like this meter, first of all, this is a Craftsman meter, and I got it at Lowe's. They sell them at Lowe's. So if you're in the US or in California, I don't know other states, but in California, Lowe's, I think they have some kind of partnership with Craftsman, and they have a section with a bunch of Craftsman tools, and in there they have this meter. And the reason why I like this meter is because it does have an RPM. It does have an RPM scale, RPM reading. So you put it in RPM, you push select until you get to 6 cylinders, and then you can check your RPM on your Montero in that secret terminal that I talked about in some of my other videos, but I'm going to talk about it again in case you don't know. So that's why I like this meter. It's a great entry-level meter. It's not a super fancy like a Fluke or anything like that. It's only like 65 bucks, but if you're starting to get into your vehicle and get into diagnosis, I think this is a pretty good entry-level meter, and I highly recommend it. I'll try to see if there's an Amazon link to buy this meter, and if so, I'll put it in the description so you can go ahead and get it. But if not, just go to Lowe's and get one. I have absolutely no affiliation with this company at all, so I'm just saying it because it is useful if you own a Montero specifically. Obviously, if you own any other kind of vehicle, same thing, but what makes it unique for the Montero is that RPM range. So let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the items that we're gonna be testing, and I think you'll find this information very, very useful. I also want to give a shout out to some of the people that comment on my YouTube channel. A lot of the comments are, you know, asking questions about their Montero, this and that. And again, remember, if you want to speak with me directly, then you will have to become a member for that. But anyway, Perimeter Cut Last, he makes a lot of comments. I greatly appreciate you. I hope I have replied to all your comments. Perimeter Cut Last. Also, an actual member of the channel, Rivera's Ficio. Thank you again. Thank you so much. I hope that I answered your questions. And then some of the other guys, which I won't go through the whole list, but again, I want to thank you guys for commenting and you know, interacting with me on the channel. If you can become a member, go ahead and do so. It's just a very small amount of money per month. If not, don't even worry about it. I don't do this for the money, but if you can, you know, obviously it helps out a little bit. So anyway, let's get to the stuff that we're going to talk about, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so this is one thing that I like about this meter. So for example, you're checking your battery voltage, and one of the things that you can check on this meter, because it does record a min-max voltage value. So when you're suspecting that you have battery issues, you can check the minimum voltage of the battery while you started the engine. So basically, you hook up the meter, you push the min-max button until you see min right there. It's hooked up to the battery. We have 12.3 volts right now, so we're gonna crank it over, and while cranking, the battery voltage should not drop below 9.6 volts. So what's gonna happen is it's gonna crank, it's gonna start the engine, and this reading is gonna give you the minimum voltage while it was cranking. So let's give that a shot. There, so now it's started, and it's going to give us our reading, our minimum voltage while it was cranking. So while cranking, we had 11.21 volts. which is obviously okay, because basically you're looking for no less than 9.6 volts while cranking. So that's one thing that you can check with this meter. All right guys, and here's one other thing we can check, and then our next step here is going to be checking your ohms on your injectors. So let's say, for example, you're suspecting one of your injectors is failing or something's going on with it, and you want to check the ohms on your injectors. This is basically the way you do that. So basically you find connector B44. Connector B44 is this guy right here. This connector is B44, and these are all the wires that go to all 6 injectors, including the power wire that comes from the MFI relay, and also the wire that goes to the purge solenoid. And we'll talk about that connector in detail right now, looking at the wiring diagram. Now this connector, you know, we have to move it out of the way. We can just disconnect it from here. Just push here, and then unplug it like that, and it's just unplugged. And then we can check the wires right there. We can also pull this from the bracket like this, and then we'll have better access to it up here. So that's what we'll do. See how the terminals are right there. We have, from top to bottom, we have 4, and then we have another 4 on this side. So looking at these terminals, the ones on the right here, 1 2 3 4, and then 5 6 7 8 on this side. So let's talk about that in the workbench. So when we're looking at this connector, here's the wiring diagram. Here we have the wiring diagram. Let me put the flashlight on here so you can see better. So we have the wiring diagram. These are the injectors right here, all 6 injectors, and also they put the purge solenoid right there, because the purge solenoid is wiring also goes through connector B44. See, here's connector B44 right there, and then we have all these terminals on connector B44, and including the red wire that comes from the MFI relay. So right here, right there. So this is what the connector looks like. See this? This is connector B44. Now, if we were to get more details on that connector, it would be this. So if you're looking at connector B44 just the way we were looking at it on the car, on the right side we have terminals 1 2 3 and 4, and then 5 6 7 8. Okay, now terminal number 1 is for injector number 3, terminal number 2 injector number 2, terminal number 3 for injector number 1, terminal number 4 goes to the purge solenoid. So we can also check the purge solenoid ohms from this connector. Terminal number 5 is injector number 6, and so for terminal number 6 injector number 5, terminal number 7 is for injector number 4, and terminal number 8 is the red wire coming from the MFI relay. So basically what we'll do is we'll get our meter, put it on voltage, put the negative lead, or it doesn't really matter positive or negative, let's just do positive. All right, so we'll get the positive lead and put it on terminal number 8, and then with the negative lead we'll test all the other ones, and we'll get an ohm reading. We'll get an ohm reading of all these components, all the injectors including the purge solenoid, and that's what we'll do. So for the injectors, I'm thinking we have about 30 ohms, around 30 to 40 ohms on all these components. So let's go ahead and check it out, and we'll find out, right? All right, so we have the positive terminal of the meter to the bottom, to the bottom left terminal right there. So now we're gonna check based on our diagram. We're gonna check the ohms on this terminal. Let me just put. All right, so now we have. So now we are checking this terminal here. So basically we're checking injector number 3, and we have 15.4 ohms. So 15.4 ohms on injector number 3. 15.4 ohms. just gonna go down the list. We should have the same amount of ohms on all these terminals, but let's just go down the list. Okay guys, and then once we're done, we just unplug this guy. We put our connector back in the bracket here. Just slide it in there like this. And then we have the other part of the harness and we connect it like such until it clicks. And that's it. That's the way you check your ohms on your injectors on your Mitsubishi Montero. All right. So let's go on to another test. All right guys, so the other thing we can do with this meter, it also has a temperature measurement right there. So it does come with this other little probe, little temperature probe, and you put that in there, and then you put the little probe, little tiny probe, this guy here, and that'll give you your temperature reading. But you got to be careful with this because it is polarized. It does have polarity. So as you can see, that has the negative, and then this side is positive, this side is positive. So when you put it on your meter, this obviously positive, negative, so it would go like that. And you can see positive and negative over here. And then now, so yeah, that temperature function is pretty useful function to check temperatures here and there on the Montero. But obviously that the infrared thermometer, laser gun, that you can get one at Harbor Freight or any other store, those are probably better for temperature purposes than this meter. All right guys, so in this part of the video we're gonna talk about the dreaded no start condition on your Montero. So you come to your Montero, crank the engine over, it won't start. What do? It's a very horrible situation. But right now I'm going to show you what to do. So let's say you come to your car and this happens. No RPM, just cranks, but it won't start. What could it be? Could it be no fuel? Could it be no spark? You know, a lot of times you can tell if your timing belt broke because the engine will crank a lot faster than that. It'll just spin faster. You'll be able to notice the difference. Right now it's cranking as if the engine had compression, which it does, because I know that my timing belt's not broken, and the spark plugs, everything's in there. So in this part of the video I'm going to show you how to tell if your crank sensor is sending a signal, so using that meter. So basically this is the harness for your crank sensor right here. The signal comes out of your crank sensor and it goes to the computer. From the computer, that RPM signal goes to the tachometer and it goes to other places as well. But there's a secret tach terminal that the Monteros have that I've talked about in other vehicles, and here it is. So this little box here, it's got this little cover here next to the battery, next to the fuse box. You remove the little cover and you see that terminal right there. That is a tach terminal, tachometer terminal. So if we have an RPM signal here, then we know for a fact that that crank sensor is sending a signal to the computer. If we have a tach signal here, then we know it's not a spark related issue. More than likely it's a fuel related issue. So let's check that. Alright guys, so we have our meter here. We're gonna put it in RPM range right here, RPM. Then we're gonna select, see it says 4 cylinders, we're gonna select 6 cylinders. Okay, and I have the red terminal connected to that secret RPM terminal, and I have the black connected to the negative battery. So we're gonna put the meter right here so we can see it while we're cranking it, and let's go crank it and see what we get. All right, you guys see the meter there? $183 RPM, 189. Yep. So as you can see, we have RPM on our meter. which tells me that the crank sensor is telling the computer about the RPM, computer's telling the tachometer, and it's sending the signal to that little secret terminal. So we know for a fact that it's not spark related, it's not crank sensor signal related. So the next step after this, once we verify that it's not a crank sensor input, the next step obviously would be to check your fuel pressure on your fuel pressure test port. Maybe inject a little bit of carburetor spray in here, see if it starts with carburetor spray. Basically letting you know that it's a fuel system related issue, not a spark related issue. So yeah, that's the main reason why I think that meter is works great for the Montero, because of the RPM reading and because of the secret RPM terminal that the Monteros have. Okay, so now in this case I know for a fact that it's a fuel related issue because I did remove the fuel pump fuse. Fuel pump fuse goes right here. I started the engine until it ran out of gas, and then that's how I know that it's that it was a fuel related issue. So now let's go ahead and I put the fuse back on, so let's go ahead and restart the engine. And you can see the RPM still over there on the meter. There we go. And now we have RPM. Now on these Monteros, see how I cranked it a little while, no fuel, just crank it over. These Monteros are a little bit tricky when it comes to that, because now I have a little bit of a ticking noise, and that's completely normal. A lot of times I don't know exactly what happens, but it's normal on these engines for it to do that. After running it and revving it for a little bit, that will go away. I think the oil drains from the top of the engine and it causes a little bit of ticking noise from the upper part of the engine. But it's really not a big deal. It's a common thing on Monteros. So if that happens to you, don't get scared. Don't think that don't think that your engine is going bad or anything like that. Okay, so now as you can see right there, we're at 881 RPM. Everything seems to be normal. So now let's move on to the next thing that we can check on that meter. All right guys, so it's been idling for about, I don't know, like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. As you can see, that ticking noise is gone. So again, that's completely normal on Monteros. So our next test is we are going to check the frequency on the mass airflow sensor. And the mass airflow sensor signal output is this white wire with a black stripe. Terminal number 3, you can see it right there. And it should be higher than 3.3 volts. Let me try to see if I can find a spec on the repair manual for that. All right, so I didn't find a real spec for it, but basically when you have P0102, they want you to check the hertz on there, and it should be greater than 3.3 hertz. So as you can see right here, we have our negative lead connected to the battery negative over there. We have our meter in the hertz setting, and we're gonna back probe terminal number 3 right here. Just back probe in there, and we look at our meter, and we have 32.6 hertz, and that is completely normal. So this range also has a, if you push select, it changes to duty cycle percentage. So duty cycle, like for example the Purge solenoid, we can check the percentage of duty cycle. Actually, let's do that. Let's check the duty cycle, and we're gonna go back to that same connector. All right guys, and what we mean by duty cycle is, let's say you have a controlled circuit by the computer. So this is where it starts, turns on, and then this is where it turns off, and then this is where it turns back on. So the complete cycle would be from here all the way to here, right? So this is the whole cycle. Sometime in this cycle it's on, and sometime it's off. And then the computer controls the duty cycle, the on time. So this would be the duty cycle, this part here. So this whole cycle, the duty cycle, would be 50%. So the computer has the ability to give it more on time or less on time, and that is considered the duty cycle. All right, so let's see what we get right now. I got the meter connected right now to that bottom right terminal. Yeah, bottom right terminal of the connector. As you can see right there, and then it's at idle right now, so we have 64.4% duty cycle, and that's basically what we got. The repair manual doesn't have a duty cycle spec for that. Maybe if we look at the scanner we can see it, but the repair manual doesn't have a spec for that. It only has a voltage. So the repair manual says on that wire at 3000 RPM you should have about 9 volts. So that's what it'll average out based on the duty cycle it would have at 3000 RPM. All right guys, so let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. All right guys, since we're here, remember this terminal that's always hanging out right here? So we can check the ohms on this terminal. Put our meter in ohms right there, and hook up to this terminal. This is a terminal that's just, it's not connected to anything, it's always hanging here by the mass airflow sensor, and we can go ahead and check the ohms on it. And we have 19.9 ohms. 19.9 ohms. So basically when you're checking the ohms on these two wires, you're checking the vent solenoid, the evap vent solenoid ohms. And you check it here. Mitsubishi was kind enough to put this connector here because the solenoid is over behind the car, under the car. So you won't go down there to check the solenoid. You can check it from here. The other thing we can do with the meter is check the parasitic amp draw. Do you guys know what the parasitic amp draw is? Parasitic amp draw is the amount of voltage, or I'm sorry, the amount of amps being drawn by from the battery by the vehicle when everything is off, and it should be no more than 50 milliamps. If it's more than 50, like if one of the lights stays on overnight or something else stays on overnight, then it'll drain your battery in the morning. And or if you install an alarm system or a radio and they didn't do it correctly, and it's drawing more current than what it needs to, and it drains your battery every few days, then you need to check your parasitic amp draws, and that's what we're going to do right now. For this test, we have to disconnect the negative side of the battery. So let's do that right now. Okay, so we have the negative side disconnected. So out of these 2 points, this side is more negative than this side. So we're going to put the positive lead of the meter here and the negative lead on here. Now we are going to go, whenever you check, whenever you're not sure how many amps you have, you start with the maximum scale. So we're gonna go with the amp scale, not the milliamp scale, and not yet. And this terminal has to be switched to this side. 10 amps. I don't know why they put black on there, because that could confuse somebody. All right, so we're gonna. All right, guys. So now we have the meter connected in series with the battery. So I have the negative terminal of the battery disconnected. I have the positive lead of the meter to that terminal, and I have the negative lead of the meter to the negative terminal of the battery. I do have it on the amp scale, and it's on the amp scale over here too. This scale reads up to 10 amps, and then you have the other amp scale where you have to switch the red wire to this side, and you can measure up to 600 milliamps. But whenever your amperage is unknown, always stay with the higher amp scale, because let's say you put it on the 600 milliamps, and you have a 1 amp coming out of there for whatever purpose, you're going to blow your fuse in your meter. So always start with your higher amperage scale, unless you know exactly that that circuit is going to have below 600 milliamps. And so yeah, so just start. So because right now we can see that it's measuring, it's saying 0.014 0.030 amps, and we know that these are milliamps, so it's 14, basically 30 to 14 milliamps is what it's reading. Now if we turn the parking lights on, these guys here, and these guys are LED, low amperage LED. So let's see what happens when we turn it on. Now I'm going to open the door. The dome lights are going to come on. All right, let's see how many amps the dome lights drew there. Oh wow, look at this. So dome lights are drawing 4.5 amps. Okay, so if you had your meter hooked up to this, that would have blown that fuse right away. So I don't recommend that. So dome lights are on. It's drawing 4.5 amps. Let's turn the parking brakes on. And as you can see, the lights are on right here. I do have extra bright LEDs, so I know that they don't draw so much current. And now we have a total of 9.2 amps. 9.2 amps coming out of the being drawn out of the battery. Okay, because we have the parking lights on and we have the dome lights. Now let's turn the hazards on and see what happens. Now we have the hazards on, and the hazards are just regular incandescent bulbs. These are not LEDs. So see, now it's all over the place. So now it's going from 9.2 to overload. 9.2 to overload, meaning that it's going above 10 amps. So I guess the meter, it's okay to do this test, but you know, not for higher amperage type of testing. For that you would need a separate meter, or just a different type of meter. But for low current situations, then this meter would probably work okay. And also parasitic amp draw. So basically when you turn everything off, let's say we turn everything off, that's off, that's off, close the door so the dome lights can go off, and then now we have 3.4 amps. Now keep in mind, the Montero has a bunch of modules and computers, and it's very smart, so it's making sure that things are all okay. It's got timers for when the dome lights stop working, when the windows stop working. It's got some timers for that, and it's got to keep the computers going. So see, now it went down to 300 milliamps. It went from 3.4 to 300. It's going to stay here for a little while, and then it's going to go to the regular parasitic amp draw function, or there it is right there. So the parasitic amp draw on the Montero is 14 to 35, I would say, milliamps. 14 to 30 milliamps, and that amount of amps is always being drawn out of the battery for computer memory purposes, for radio memory purposes, for other things. But that's not going to drain your battery overnight. It's going to take maybe 3 or 4 weeks to drain the battery, because it is draining it little by little, very little by little, but it is draining it, but it's a very small amount. Actually maybe longer than 4 weeks. I'm not sure. Maybe one day I'll test it, I don't know. But anyway, so that's basically how you check the amps on your Montero, and that's basically what normal parasitic amp draws are. All right guys, well, that pretty much concludes the video. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate you guys. I hope that you learned something and you got something out of this video. Please comment down below. Let me know if you have any questions or anything I can answer for you. I would be more than happy to do so. And from all of us here at the Mitsubishi Montero channel, we greatly appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.